asking for the vote of every single African American citizen in this country who wants to see a better future. To those I say the following: what do you have to lose?
Well, fellas, I understand that Donald is reaching out. Just wanted to know how you feel about his outreach.
Well, when you say reaching out, I mean, I know we're going to talk specifically about the comments he made, but my initial response was reaching out to who? Because he's still talking bad about blacks and Hispanics, and he's talking to white folk when he's doing it. He's not really talking to us. He's talking about us, and in not so flattering terms, to say the least.
And he's appealing to us like he can offer us something better than what we have already had. You know, I hope I live to see it. But what is he going to bring to the table that no one else has brought?
Well, you know, like for example, again, and kind of paraphrasing some of his remarks, when he talks about, he says, you know, the violence, you know, that you know, like you live every day under fear of being shot by your own in your community. That's not my fear. My fear's got something to do with.
We sit here in Beaver Falls. You all right?
My fear's got something to do with law enforcement, but that's a whole other subject for another time. Okay, so you know, so he's talking about, you know, this supposed black on black crime as though he's got a concern. But at the same time, I watched him at his convention and among other places just dismiss the acts of crime that are occurring to people of color at the hands of law enforcement. You can't dismiss me over here, then a few weeks later when you realize, oh, I really do need you, now try to speak to me, and then speak to me in ways that are so offensive and condescending.
You don't find out your experience, you know, when you're walking the streets of Beaver Falls or the streets of Alacopa, you don't find that you worry about somebody running up on you and shooting you for no apparent reason? That is not, I mean, when he says things such as, you know, again, fearing for your safety, that your schools are horrible, that your kids don't work, and all these sorts of things. First of all, he makes it sound as though, to me, to my ears, that all that is true, and that's not everybody's truth. And then the second thing is he almost makes it sound like it's something that's endemic to us as a people and not endemic to a system. And again, but he's offering no substance of how he's going to address any of those issues in terms of educational reform, employment, and crime. It's just a bunch of slogans to me.
A magic bullet without even showing the magic bullet. You know, he hasn't put out anything as far as policy to where he's going to change our communities, or how he can change our community, or how do you start to change our communities?
Well, first of all, I mean, you know, if you want to talk with black people, go where they are. How about that? I mean, the optics, you know, and they've been talking about this. You know, he's talking about us to audiences that don't even have us there. You want to talk with black people about an agenda for the African American community? Why didn't you go to the NAACP convention?
Well, I did see 2 black people in the audience.
Why was Trump not at the NAACP convention? You know, why was he not at the National Association of Black Journalists convention?
And I guess I would also ask too, do we know of any? Does he have any track record of doing anything in the black community? Does he have any track record of addressing these issues? Now, you know, whether you like Hillary or hate her, she does have a background of addressing some of these issues. You know, attempting to address, ineffective, whatever, you know, and some of her remarks have been offensive as well. I think as black folks, we kind of get used to that. When he starts to reach out, however clumsy his attempts might be, you know, I mean, do you feel that there's any sincerity with that, given the history? I mean, this is not a young man. You know, we're talking about this is a man, you know, he's what, 70 years old?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, I was really offended by the remarks, and I was offended by the whole deal. Why? Because I knew he was not talking to us, as Dr. Todd said earlier, because if he was talking to us, he would have been in a room full of us making those comments. But I think he was addressing a group that he wants to pull in, that he wants to appeal to say, hey, look, I'm a good guy. I love black people too.
Yeah, yeah.
And I thought that was what that was.
For those middle of the road kind of folks that might not, they don't want to be called racist,
right?
You know, and they don't, you know, and so I think that was the appeal to those folks. Look, I'm not a racist.
I don't know the man. I don't know his heart, but all I know are the words that you put forth out of your mouth, and what he said, not only in regards to African Americans, but what he said about Hispanics, particularly his offensive comments around Mexico when he launched his campaign. What he's said continued about other quote-unquote immigrants to this country. But apparently it's okay for him to marry them. But you know, just repeatedly the offensive things that he says. And then rather than make an apology, or, you know, or even being asked to, you know, disavow people such as a David Duke, for example. But rather than make an apology, he does then what they say, the popular phrase now is double down. Just say something even more offensive. And it is, you know, again, I'm not saying he is responsible for the increase in hate in this country. I think the election that occurred back in 2008 helped to uptick that.
Yes.
But he's given them more of a legitimacy.
Yes.
And he's given them a platform from one of the major parties, and that's what makes it really disturbing. There's nothing new under the sun. We've seen this before. Today's alt-right was yesterday's White Citizens Council, in my opinion. It's the Klan in business suits. You know, they don't lynch you with a rope, they lynch you with policy.
While that's going on, I suppose that he thinks that people are not paying attention. Minorities can connect dots, you know, and they can see that this movement is flourishing, this movement is behind you, and there's a reason why they're attaching themselves to him. You know?
Well, and the other thing that some people seem to have forgotten too is Trump was one of those big voices, you know, proponents behind that whole birther movement and wanting to check, you know, Barack Obama's birth certificate, and he still ain't really let that thing go. And that's something.
Has he apologized for that?
That as no.
I mean, he's not a guy that apologizes.
Well, he doesn't apologize, and when he doesn't apologize, what he says is, "I have regrets," which is not the same as saying I'm sorry.
Right. I'm not really sorry. You know.
Try that one. Try that one at home. You get in trouble. I have regrets.
Okay.
Yeah.
You had those regrets on the house.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's for sure.
Yeah. I think there's still a disconnect, and I don't know that the minority communities see his efforts as legitimate or sincere, and you know that's a problem that he's going to have to deal with.
Well, there will always be some, but I don't think he's going to get the numbers that he needs from that demographic.
So remember to vote, and that'll be it for this week's episode of Barbershop Talk.